Yeah. Now there's a story here. I don't remember if I told it last time or not. It's a very interesting story that Menoras Hamaor brings down. He's talking about this idea of a musar, that a musar is a person who hands people over to the authorities. Hands Jewish money or Jewish people to the authorities. He's an informer. That kind of thing. Of course, we know the terrible problems that Yidden have had with informers throughout the ages. In terms of by the Kantonistan when they were the Gezerah in Russia to the children had to go out, they were inducted into the army and all the
Sektia.
That was KGB.
Yeah, right. The Jewish agents of the KGB.
The
worst.
What was called in
the Sektia.
The Jews have always, unfortunately, suffered from our own more than anybody else because they're the people with the inside information, right? So, in fact, somebody was just telling me. Rav Yochanan was just telling me that he said that he has a son who works for Intel in the security, and he says that the worst infractions of security are for inside jobs, that are people are selling the passwords. People who work in Intel are selling the passwords to the people on the outside. And in general, the worst, all the major court cases and persecutions and all this kind of thing are in the old days, with the worst inquisitions and things like that were Jewish converts, right? That were giving them all these secrets.
Christiani.
Yeah. So all that stuff. So it's generally Jews. So according to Chazal, this is one area where you're allowed to kill somebody. You're actually allowed, al pi din, to kill a musar, and there have been examples of that.
How do you spell musar? Mem samach reish.
Mem vav samach reish. Yeah. Musar.
And what's the difference between musar being...
Well, it's the same word, yeah, basically. Wow. Musar is moiser, that you're giving over somebody to something. So there's a mice in the Gemara about, there was a Rav Kahana in Bovel, and and there was a particular person who was giving over money of his property of his friends to the Goyim. And he said that, and he warned him, that you better not do that. And he said, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it anyway. And he this toik or whatever. So actually, Rav Kahana killed him. So he was before Rav, and Rav told him, you better get out of here. You better flee, because if the authorities find out, he says that if they're going to think, if they see people killing each other, they're going to think it's a whole rebellion, and they're going to come down hard on all of Yidden. It's going to be a whole catastrophe. So he told them he should go to Eretz Yisrael. So he said, in order to do tshuva, that your tshuva will be, I guess, for putting the Yidden in danger or something. I'm not sure. So he says that, he says that until this point, the Greeks were makbid on shvichus dam, and they should keep the peace. They should keep people from killing each other. But now they're going to think that there's making a whole merida. So he said that you should go to, and I'm not sure if this is as a tshuva or simply as a protection for himself, like doing something extra that he should be protected. He shouldn't be captured or something. So he said that as something you're going to take on, you're going to go to Eretz Yisrael. You're going to sit in front of Rav Yochanan, but you're going to take on yourself that you're not going to ask any kashas. You're not going to ask any questions, which is really hard for him because he's a very brilliant Talmid Chacham, and he would have all these things to challenge, and that's how the academy worked. And was that what we don't appreciate, and some people may not appreciate, is what the way the academies worked in Babel and so whatever. It was based on challenging, on asking challenging questions, and not just allowing a person to give a shiur and say, it was the more you were able to ask challenging questions that couldn't be answered, the higher up you went in the line. And it was a very competitive thing. As you asked better questions, you were put up to a higher level, and as you didn't ask what you should have asked, you were put down. And there was a row. There was a whole setup of how the Talmidim were ranked in this whole structure. So he took it on. He was going to go for 7 years. He's not going to ask any questions. So he comes to this. So he comes immediately to Eretz Yisrael, and the first thing he goes into Rav Yochanan's academy, and he looks immediately.
Which Yochanan ben Zakkai?
No, this is Rav Yochanan. He was the forget what his father's name was. He was the father-in-law of Rish Lakish.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so he was Mekar of Rish Lakish, and he was the son-in-law. So the first thing he went was to find Rish Lakish. So there's a couple different versions, but according to one version, he went to hear from Rish Lakish what Rabbi, because Rish Lakish used to chazer over, he used to review what Rabbi Yochanan said in the shir. So he said, so he asked what was going on, and everything that that they said, like it was like, it was like nothing for him. It was like he was asking all kinds of questions. So this Rish Lakish went to Rav Yochanan and he said, got to watch out. There's this lion has arrived from Bovel. He's really going to give you a hard time. So he said, okay, I'm ready for that. Rav Yochanan. I'll talk about it later. Anyway, so he came to the shir, and he started saying, different. This is his shir. This is nice, whatever. He said over his members, and Rav Kahana didn't say anything. So because he took it on, he's not going to say anything. Right? He's going to keep quiet. So they put him down a rank. So again, he said something else, and again he didn't say anything. They put him down a rank again, till he was mamish, like in the back. He was like seven ranks down. So he said, so he said to Hashem, he said, the embarrassment of my being put down. So Yochanan said, looks like the lion turned into a fox. It was like he was taking all of his koyach was taken away. So from this embarrassment, he said to Hashem, let these 7 ranks be instead of the 7 years. So he said, now I can start asking questions. So he started saying the next thing, and he asked a question, and he said that the Rabbi Yochanan was sitting on like 7 cushions, above the floor. And each time he asked him a question he couldn't answer, they took out a cushion. Until after 7 times, he was going back up the rank again, and Rav Yochanan went down until he was sitting on the floor. So then they were like on equal footing. So Rav Yochanan was okay. Now he saw how this is really a pretty sharp person. So Rav Yochanan had eyebrows which were like weighed over his eyes, very very thick eyebrows apparently that he couldn't see through his eyes. And they had a special. He had a special golden tong type of thing that they would pick up his eyebrow if he wanted to see something. And so he said, let me see this person that, it's such a big Talmud Chacham. So they picked up his eyelid, and he saw, and when he looked at Rav Kahana, apparently Rav Kahana had some kind of a wound or something on his mouth that made it look like he was smiling. So he looked at him and he thought he was laughing at him because he'd shown him up or something like that. So he had this power that he could kill a person with a glance, so to speak. So just with a glance, just by looking at him, he died. He kind of died. So they took him away, and he said,
Rabbi Kahana died.
Yeah. So the Talmidim said, it's not his fault. This is the way he is. It's a physical thing. So he said, so I'm gonna go after him. They buried him already in a cave. So he went to see him. So he went to the cave. So they took him to the cave, and he sees there's a big snake coiled in front of the cave. It doesn't let anybody in. So he said, let the Rav come in to visit the Talmud, right? So the snake doesn't budge. So he says, let the Chaver come to visit his Chaver. The snake still doesn't budge. So he says, fine, let the Talmud come to visit his Rav. Then the snake let him in. So they let him in, and he revived him.
Wow.
And then he said, and he asked him all the questions. He said, Rav Yochanan asked Rav Kahana all the questions that he had, and he answered all his questions. And then he said, so come back now to the best medrash. So Rav Kahana said, I'm not taking any chances yet until you promise me you're not going to do that again, because you can't depend that the nest is going to happen again, that you'll be able to revive me. I don't want to have that. So he promised them that it's not going to happen again, so they went back to so anyway, that's
wow.
it was just there's another story about Rabbi Yochanan that unfortunately didn't end so nicely, is that he had a problem with his own son-in-law, Rav Yochanan, Rabbi Rish Lakish, and a similar thing happened, that there was
that's why he died.
And Rish Lakish.
He died of a broken heart or something.
Rish Lakish, he basically killed Rish Lakish with his look or whatever also.
Yeah.
And because it's something like it sounded to Rav Yochanan that he was having a charota, like he regretted having become frum. He was a Baal Tshuva, and and he was married to his daughter. So eventually,
Sister, no?
sister,
No, oh,
sister, sister. Anyway, in either case,
right. It's sister. In this case, it was his brother.
yeah,
Her brother.
Yeah. So then he told. So then he couldn't find any other chavrisa that was able to he had another chavrisa, and the other chavrisa was saying yes, like he was you're right. And he said that's not what I want. I want to just look at you, just to ask me and everything, he used to contradict me and everything. He used to always challenge me, and so. Again, there's this idea that their whole chayas, their whole thing was not just to have somebody agree with them. It was dafka the back and forth and the shakataya constantly. Back and forth.